Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. This is from a guy. He's sharing a story about an experience, a unfortunately negative experience he had in his mid-20s. He was getting back into going to church. He was looking for a good church that he can get involved with because he's obviously a religious guy. And you're going to see here in this guy's story here that, to put it bluntly, this is going to make a lot of your blood boil. In particular, you religious guys. Because as you're going to see, this guy gets involved with a new congregation. He wants to get to know a lot of people, and particularly a singles group. You know, lots of groups at the church for different things, different target audiences. And you're going to see here in this group, it's for young single people, men and women. And what happens in this group, this setting, amongst the different female members there, and how it comes back to have an impact on him. Because you're going to see eventually he takes a leadership role in this group, and one thing leads to another, and you're going to see, even at church, the BS that happens nowadays to guys, and you guys can connect the dots what I'm talking about, happens there. There's no sanctuary, even at church. So I'm going to go through this, guys, just to show you how a man nowadays has to be careful even at church. It's crazy how bad things have gotten, how far things have gone. But this is why I do this channel. This is why I talk about these things, to spread awareness to you guys, to help you don't end up in a situation like this guy, and go from there. So it starts off, he says, "Hello SSM. I just finished watching your video called Former Nice Guy Has the Last Laugh After Being Taken Advantage of and Being Betrayed by the So-Called Friend. And it has inspired me to share a kind of similar experience that I had. Unfortunately, I didn't have as happy of an ending. Many years ago, I decided it was time to go back to church. I was in my mid-20s, and I become very interested in Christianity. Wanting to find a church of my own to worship each Sunday, I visited different churches in my area. Eventually, I settled in at a nearby and relatively big Southern Baptist church. I must be honest and say it wasn't a perfect fit. There were some good points and there were some bad points, but in the end, I decided to stick around. I joined up with a singles group for people my age, which was basically any unmarried person in their 20s. I usually attended the singles group before church each Sunday. Many of the people in the group seemed pretty friendly. Overall, I thought it was a positive environment, at least at first. At church. Unbelievable. Before I go too much further, I should offer some background. I'm not sure how much experience you have with church, but I hope you don't interpret what I'm about to say as talking down to you. This information is necessary to understand some of what comes later. Bro, don't worry about it. No need to explain yourself. You're not talking down to me, because there's a lot of people who may not know how this works. And by the way, I've mentioned this once, at least once or twice before in previous videos. Growing up, I was smothered. And I do mean, there's no exaggeration, that was smothered in JC, in church. As a little kid, I went to a private school, Lutheran school, and it was, strict, but not too bad. Good environment, actually. And then we moved across country, and then from 9 years old until I was 16, and essentially declared my independence, every Sunday school in the morning, followed by church, then usually some kind of activity in the afternoon. Then in the summertime, there was different Bible camps and things like that. My mom put me in the church choir in the 5th and 6th grade. I'll still never forgive her for that one. Can you guys picture me up there with a hymnal, or whatever you want to call it, singing? That would give you a good laugh. And different youth groups and other things I can't even think of. Non-stop. God forbid I miss a Sunday. Then when I was about 16 years old, I said, that's it, enough. This has been non-stop since preschool. Enough's enough. So believe me, I get it. A lot of nice people I met along the way. A lot of people I thought were hypocrites back then, and I was right. But overall, looking back, a good experience. And let me tell you, I certainly learned a lot of things. And nowadays, if I watch Jeopardy, I can usually answer every single question in the category about the Bible and Christianity. Anyway, there you go. A little info on me. Anyway, he says, in most evangelical churches, the different church groups are usually organized under various ministries. In evangelical parlance, a ministry is a specific program offered a certain type of demographic. Different ministries specialize in different things. The Baptist church I had joined offered several different ministries, which is pretty common. There were groups and programs aimed at newlyweds, small children, teenagers, college students, grief recovery, divorcees, and so forth. My church group was part of the singles ministry. For a variety of reasons, you'd think that the church would prioritize the singles ministry, but they didn't. 99% of the church's programs and infrastructure were aimed at families. Well, that actually makes sense to me because that's their primary audience. Those groups and ministries were mentioned frequently from the pulpit to attract new members, while the singles ministry was never mentioned. Well, I don't think they see themselves as a singles club, for lack of a better term. Each group meeting was sort of like the small version of a regular church service. People would hang out together in the classroom, socialize a little bit, pray together, and then the group's teacher would do a quick 10 to 15-minute Bible lesson. So it kind of sounds like my Sunday school growing up when I was a little kid and teenager. We get together for 45 minutes. It was kind of like that. Anyway, like I say, I found my singles group to be a pretty good environment. People seemed to enjoy each other's company. When I first joined, I assumed that everyone in the group had joined for the same reason I did. And my reasons were to soak up the atmosphere, get out of my townhouse a little bit, make some new friends, do fun activities, and so forth. How wrong I was. What I eventually realized is that my singles group was about 50% female, as might be expected, and most of those women had an agenda all of their own. It's unbelievable that I know it's coming, guys, and this is happening in a place that he figured he could have some peace. But no, today's world is even the events and actions and what we talk about is happening there. The women tend to be very competitive with each other. They would have stupid rivalries with each other. They tend to be attracted to the same 3 or 4 guys in the group, and I eventually came to see that they had fostered a pretty toxic environment amongst each other. Even at church. At the end of the day, guys, I say this all the time on my channel and things I talk about. Human nature is human nature. It doesn't make a difference where you live in this world and what women respond to and how they behave and how men are. It's the same thing anywhere in the world. Wherever you are in the world right now, it's the same. And it doesn't make a difference your religion, your culture, your socioeconomic scale, all that, and where you are, even if you are supposed to be in a place where you're going to, maybe check your a-hole ways for an hour and a half. Nope. The nature of big evangelical churches is to grow and change with time. After a couple of years, this group's teacher had decided to move on to some other group because he had gotten married and didn't really belong with the singles anymore. He tapped me on the shoulder to replace him as the group's teacher. I was reluctant about that because I didn't consider myself to be an outgoing people person. But even so, I agreed to serve as his replacement because I thought it might be a good chance to help people. And that's where all the trouble began. And I'm sure you can guess right now where the trouble began. It wasn't with the dudes in the group. I already had a lot of experience with women. I was never some sheltered church mouse, but I was still amazed at how differently the women in the group treated me once I started teaching. It was like overnight they suddenly realized they were attracted to me. Well, that's because you were now in a leadership role, and the attention was on you because you were leading the group. Remember, women like leaders. They're attracted to them. The guy in charge. When I was in martial arts for 6 years, all the male instructors there that would come and go over the years, the girls were just swooning over these guys because they were the authority figures. It was always the same thing. Same thing even in church. That might sound good to some people, but I mentioned the toxic environment that the gals had begun creating. I was aware of some of it, but not even close to it at all. And I didn't want to become a prize that all the women competed for. Well, bro, again, back to the paying attention to the red flags. And if you sense this stuff early on, now knowing what you know and you're sharing your story, that many guys here are definitely becoming aware, paying attention to red flags. And if their gut senses something not right, best to get on out. So if you had sensed there was obviously problems and even labeled it as toxic, I wouldn't have accepted that role as leadership. But you were young, inexperienced, you didn't know. I guarantee you wouldn't make the same mistake today in a different situation or setting. Because of all that, I mostly keep my distance from the women. Seeing them on Sunday mornings was one thing. But I had reservations about seeing them outside of the group activities too much for a lot of reasons. You obviously sense there's an issue. And you figure, okay, I'll do my thing there, and that's that. and no harm, no foul. Well, watch this. I don't know everything that happened next. All I have to work with is my own experience, my own memories and fragments of gossip that have come my way over the years. But the way it looks is that my aloof way of teaching and leading the group eventually turned some of the women off. They became upset that I wasn't making myself available for dates and romantic stuff like that. Okay, yes, this was the singles group, but you weren't exactly doing like a singles thing. I don't think that the leader of this group was actually dating the gals in the group. You were there leading the group, maybe reading 15 minutes of Bible stories or whatever and doing your thing, and that was it. And you were going home because you wanted to separate the two. Well, they probably didn't like rejection, and this is where the drama starts. Because I've told you guys a million times, women hate rejection. And a lot of them will go crazy. You've heard stories against the guy if he rejects him. I've done stories where in the workplace, gal likes a guy, he's not interested in her, maybe because he doesn't want to do anything, get involved in the workplace. Next thing you know, HR has called him to come on down because there's been a complaint against him. You've heard these stories. He says, so 2 or 3 of them got together, hatched a scheme, and set their evil little plan into motion. Before I knew what was going on, I got a call from the pastor at the church. He tried to sound super cool and super reasonable and all that. He basically he told me he had received complaints about some of my inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate, it's not like you're having contact with any of them outside of there and you're just doing your thing there. But they hate rejection. He spoke in vague terms, not appropriate, troubling, unwelcome, and stuff like that. He didn't elaborate on what I had supposedly done or said. He just said that it was all bad in some way or another. Well, I would be demanding, I would say, what was exactly said to me. Don't give me this troubling BS, sir. He recommended that I stop teaching the group for a little while so that I could meet with him and we could talk things over. No. I'm a member there. I'm leading this group. You tell me now on the phone, sir. The problem is a lot of people, when it comes to the ministry, the ministers, the pastors, they a lot of times treat them like they are, don't mean to offend anybody here, but living gods. They're not. They're people. Obviously, I was confused by all this, but I didn't see the harm in meeting with the pastor to clarify what I did or didn't happen. So I agreed in principle to meet with him. About a half an hour later, I received an email from the pastor, which was sent to everybody in the whole group. I emphasize that email was sent only to the singles group. It was not sent to the entire church. Yeah, well, I'm sure rumors spread like crazy, like wildfires, and that was probably being forwarded. Or, ooh, did you hear about this? At the end of the day, people are people. It doesn't make a difference where they are. In the email, the pastor said I've been emergency removed from my post as the group's teacher following accusations of inappropriate and not so good behavior of several of the group's female members. What a load of crap. This poor guy. No good deed goes unpunished, right? The pastor went on to say that he personally discouraged everyone in the group from making contact with me or communicating with me in any way. The pastor addressed that he would be meeting with me privately to work through these issues, but he emphasized I would never be allowed to teach any group in the church again. This is when I'd say, see ya. I'm going to someplace else, a better church, where they're not going to just, without even talking to me about anything, make me out to be the bad guy here. And you're not getting my money. He went on to say that I was a very poor example of what Christian leadership is supposed to look like. He added that he personally did not endorse me in any way whatsoever, he said, and I had shown very poor character. It's their word against his. And obviously, because this is the new guy, and it's a guy, and these are a bunch of gals saying this, hey, Millie's going to believe them. And wait till you see, there's more to this, guys, why he's taking the side of these gals over this new young guy. This guy's an asshole. So the pastor spoke in bland, non-specific terms with me on the phone and made it sound like we would quietly resolve whatever problems were going on together. But then he immediately blasted me in public in front of my friends and alienated me from the entire group. This is when I'd be saying pretty much, F you, pastor. Quick little interruption, but I got to add my point here. Back in 2008, when the economy tanked because of the housing crisis. In 2009, obviously we were in recession, and this impacted churches as well. At the time, my mother was on the church council of the church that my family went to and all that, and they had to make some cuts, and it was a lot of drama. And a part of the church council, the pastor would be there as well. And this guy, they got a new guy maybe a year or so earlier. And this guy was an egomaniac. There was no other way to put it. They had great pastors all these different years. This guy was an egomaniac. And my mom was a very practical woman about in terms of budget and all that stuff like that. And this guy was not. And he started yelling at her and tearing her down in front of other members of the group because this guy was an egomaniac and people treated him like he was like literally a living god. And I remember, thank God, my accountant, who was also a good friend of my mom's, was on the board, on the council, and he defended him and said, don't pull the God card with us and blah, 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 blah. But these guys, some of these guys can get real giant egos and talk down to people like they are just like nothing. My mom didn't tolerate that BS, but the point is, perfect example of this. Anyway, and I still didn't know exactly what I supposedly did. Yeah, this guy didn't know what he did. There was nothing there. Just boom, you're guilty. Well, obviously there was no going back from that. The pastor had ruined any chance I might have to fix things. So I left that church and haven't been back ever since. Good. They don't need you. You're a great guy. And they certainly don't need your money. A few months after leaving, a friend of mine who was a deacon in the church finally cornered the pastor to find out what went on. What the deacon told me was that 2 of the 3 women, wait for it guys, 2 or 3 women complained to the pastor that I had sent them spicy text messages and invited them to my place for spicy activities on Messenger. How about looking up proof for these things? He just believed their word. How about some proof of these texts that he supposedly sent? That stuff would be a problem anywhere, but in a conservative place like an evangelical church, it is even worse. That type of stuff simply isn't done. Apparently, the pastor instantly accepted all of that without any evidence. One of these single women came from a prominent family in the church. Ding, ding, ding. That means, prominent family means they've been there a while, but more importantly, they are big donors. Because churches operate on the donations of the members of the congregation. So, let's see. Ditch the new guy, or potentially piss off potential donors or go someplace else. And there you go. What a scumbag. The pastor said that something had to be done about these accusations, and he reasoned that it would be easier to replace me as the group's teacher than it would be to replace the prominent family. I say unbelievable, but then again, I can believe this because I've seen a jackass pastor in what my family's church many, many, many moons ago. Because of that, I got fired from my volunteer teaching position and ostracized from the whole group. I was a political decision, not a pastoral one. In the end, all my years of membership, the year I had spent teaching, and the dozens of friends I made in the church all counted for exactly 0. I wonder if this guy can make a lawsuit out of this. Seriously. I know nobody wants to sue a church, but they have insurance for a reason. Things happen. They'd settle. Some people may be watching and be like, oh, SSM, you've gone too far. I don't think I have. This guy was wronged. He didn't do anything right. They didn't investigate it. There's proof they didn't do these things. And that one girl comes from a prominent family. They got money. Some people made up a nonsense story about me. Almost nobody ever questioned it. I was presumed guilty. Case closed. Right here in the story is where I'm supposed to tell you all about how karma came back and bit my false accusers. But this isn't a fairy tale, and justice was never served. Not always is there justice, guys. As far as I know, the women got away with it no problem. The group pretty much died after I got axed. Imagine that. None of the men in the group wanted to replace me, and after that, they'd seen what happened to me. Well, okay, some karma came out of that. It didn't matter to the women, of course, but then most of them... Here comes the recycling truck. Most of them had moved on. One of my false accusers relocated to a different country to marry someone she met on the internet. One of the other women gave birth to her second out-of-wedlock child about 1 or 2 years ago. Out-of-wedlock child, ha ha ha. And apparently, that's no problem for the church. The third woman is still single. What a surprise. Believe me, karma will strike them. You may not get to witness this, unfortunately, but it will, believe me, and that pastor as well. He may be replaced one day. Obviously, this whole thing left a bitter taste in my mouth. I still consider myself to be basically a Christian, but I decided that I will never allow any church, or anybody else for that matter, to hurt me the way I got hurt at that Baptist church. Good, bro. Dude, if your faith is important to you, in my opinion, then don't let these assholes ruin that, okay? And if you don't want to be at a certain church because of what happened, okay, you can still have your faith and go on from there. I know people may have different opinions about this, so for those of you that are just shaking in your seats, dying to have an opinion about this, and maybe disagree with what I say, calm down, relax here. We're not going to be nutcases. Since this story happened, I switched denominations because, like I said above, the Baptist thing was never a good fit anyway. Today, I either avoid the gals entirely in religious settings, or if I must talk to them, I keep our interactions very brief and only speak to them in a crowded public place. Good, bro. I will never take up another leadership position in a church setting again. Well, my mom, once that her term was done in that church council, never did that again after all that BS. So I get it. Because leadership is a painting a target on your back. No thanks. They can find someone else to be a sucker. This experience wasn't a total loss, though. If you want to see red RP ideas like hypergamy, the epiphany phase, the born-again virgin, and other things play out in real time, you can probably see them in most church group settings. These women are literally no different from the non-Christian world. So becoming RP is probably the only positive thing to come out of this whole fiasco. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest, SSM. You're doing good work. Thank you, bro. I appreciate your story. I'm sorry it happened to you. I mean, that really sucks. But don't let these mother effers ruin your faith if that's important to you. Okay? I mean, seriously, that goes for anybody else. But lesson learned, and the BS that goes on out there even happens in the sanctuary, where literally sanctuary is a place of being saved from the outside world. In your place of worship, in your place of, come on here. But here we are in today's world. And this, he said, obviously happened some time ago. But believe me, karma will strike back those that did wrong to you. Mark my words. They're going to be more satisfying to witness this, but I guarantee it will. But guys, you got to pay attention. You got to be careful. You got to pay attention to the red flags. I mean, this guy sensed early on there was something up, and I'm not faulting him, because he was young. He didn't know any better, but now he knows. And now a lot of you guys heard this story, and now you can pay attention to this thing. And always remember, your gut's telling you something's wrong, something's off. Pay attention to that. And how nowadays these guys, even in church, you're not safe. Unbelievable. So, all right, guys, that'd be a good one to go over. Something different than the usual. That is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, as I always say, if you got a great story you'd like to share with me about something that happened in your life, something you overcome, or just some injustice, I don't know what it is, that you think would make a good video for me to read, by all means, email it to me. strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com, and you can see obviously the link in the about section of this page. Or if you guys find any really entertaining or really good articles for me to go over, something that's related to what I talk about, send that too. It's a big help to me, because the more you guys send this stuff to me, I can constantly crank them out and get 2 videos done here a day, and another video from my other channel, They Did What, and keep them going. So it's a big help, and we can all help each other out, guys. We're building a community here, and that's what we can do in this crazy nutcase world we got in. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about that. I said that part. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.